Are people aware that the police actually investigate crimes? They don't just take somebody's word. Like, people in my comments keep saying, the only reason I wasn't arrested was because I went to the police first. And the police took my word on everything. I said he did it, so the police said he did it, and that's the end of the story. Except there was a full investigation. The police won't just take your story. They'll take your story. Yes, they will write everything down, and then they will investigate it, which is what happened. I went to the police. I told them my story, and for 2 years, they investigated. They got evidence, DNA, fingerprints, his. So people are saying that had somebody else gone to the police first, I would have been in jail. But that doesn't make sense if you know anything about the law. Going to the police first is not a get-out-of-jail-free card if you committed the crime. I didn't commit the crime. The police proved that in their investigation when they proved that he did commit the crime. My going to the police helped because nobody knew what had happened. So, yeah, he would not have been caught if I had not gone to the police because the government had not checked on her in 4 years. Right? So, she was not even supposed to be in that house. The man was a registered sex offender. She needed a full-time caregiver. You're not supposed to just allow a registered sex offender to be a full-time caregiver for somebody who is immobile and unable to escape them, unable to get away. She had nobody checking on her, nobody taking care of her. When you're in a position like she was in, the government is supposed to be checking on you every 6 months. My brother was handicapped to the point that the government was supposed to come and check on him every 6 months. It pissed my parents off to have these regular check-ins on him, that they were always failing because they sucked. But Roberta, being a full-grown adult, she had fallen through the cracks, and the government had stopped sending people out to check on her, and nobody had seen her face except for Kenneth McBride in years. So y'all saying that if anybody else had gone to the police, I would be in prison. Nobody else knew. I was the only one that could go to the police aside from the man that committed the crime. So, what they're talking about is when I got away from him, March 31st, 2009, I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. He was going to kill me, and I couldn't stay there and wait for him to kill me. He had gone and gotten another dog, and this one was sick. Her name was Mercy, and she had been starved to death by her previous owners. He found the dog on Craigslist, same place he found me. He found lots of things on Craigslist. So he went and he got the dog, and she could barely stand on her own. We fed her, we bathed her, and the dog voluntarily got up onto the bed. And because she was so weak, I told him that she should use the bed, and I would sleep on the couch in the living room. And he agreed to that. he agreed to allow me to sleep in the living room that night for the dog's sake. And then I laid there in the living room and I listened to him snoring for hours, thinking, I can go now. I can just go. I can go. And I didn't. I just sat there and I just listened for till like 3 a.m. I couldn't make myself move. I knew he was asleep, but I knew that he could wake up at any second. And if I wasn't there, he was going to find me. He had friends that were going to find me. But the dog kept coming out. Mercy kept coming and licking my hand and looking at me like she was asking me why I was still there. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the dog kept asking me why I was still there. Until I finally said, okay, I'm going, I'm leaving. And I had packed a bag that I had prepared and hidden away because I had been planning to run. I had a camera, a real one, not a phone like I use now. And I had been making videos on this camera asking people to help me and then just leaving the SD cards out places, hoping somebody would find them. Nobody ever did. Well, once I realized that he was asleep and I could leave, I went out a window. And I went to the gas station down the road. And I didn't know what to do from there because in my mind, he was following right behind me. And he was going to kill me for trying to leave. At the gas station, I told the lady, I tried to get a taxi. I was going to take a taxi to the next town and get help there. I didn't want to get help in the same neighborhood as him. I didn't want him waking up to police sirens and knowing they were for him, you know? There were no taxis. They said it's out in the middle of nowhere. Taxis don't run out there. So the two ladies, an older lady and a younger lady, offered to let me stay there until the shift ended, and then the younger lady would give me a ride into town, which is what happened. I sat there behind the counter, staring at the mirror, watching the door, expecting every second that he was going to come through that door. Or somebody that knew him was going to come through that door. And even though I was hidden, I just, he was going to know. No, you can't hide from him. You can't. 6 a.m. came, and the lady gave me a ride. She gave me a ride to my friend's job in St. Augustine. And I told my friend that I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. He had murdered a woman and buried her in the backyard, and I had just gotten away from him, and I was terrified. And she said, you need to call the police. So I said, I need a phone. And that was the extent of my friend told me to do it. I said I needed a phone. I didn't have a phone. It didn't have minutes. Once the police intercepted me, they bought minutes for the phone that I had. But at the time, I didn't have, and I didn't know you could call 911 with a phone without minutes back then. That's news to me. I know now that a phone that's not even connected can still call 911 as long as it has battery. And that's a good thing to know, because back then, I thought that once he took the minutes off my phone, he was taking me from any communication. I didn't know how to call and get help from that point. So from there, I rode around with the police all day. I never asked for a lawyer. I told them everything that I knew. I gave them everything that I had, which was my laptop that had all the emails and things on it from us. I did everything I could. I did everything I could to make sure that he didn't get to do this to anybody else. So, all of you that are saying that if my friend had gone to the police first, they would have done an investigation. And they would have found the same thing that they found in the first investigation, which is that he committed the crime. Not only did they find the evidence that he committed the crime, they have his confession. Multiple times he confessed. The last time being at the trial to the judge. No, somebody else turning him in would not have resulted in me going to prison because I didn't commit the crime. And the police do actually investigate. Even if you turn a criminal in, they still investigate to make sure that you didn't commit the crime yourself. Because that happens sometimes. Sometimes people commit crimes and then go to the police and say, hey, he did this. And the police investigate and say, actually, you did this. They do their jobs. Surprisingly, as much as you guys hate police and want to believe they're all complete buffoons, they actually investigate crimes. If I had committed the crime, I would have been arrested. That's simple as that. If I had committed the crime, if they had found the evidence that I had committed the crime, I would have been arrested. My testimony would not have gotten me out of prison for murder. That's simply not how murder charges work. They're not that frivolous with them.